Good morning to everybody. Today I'm going to teach you a Julius Caesar written by William Shakespeare. So, Julius Caesar, written by William Shakespeare. I already given the introduction about the author Julius Caesar in last classes. We was discussing William Shakespeare's poem, and then today we are discussing Julius Caesar, written by William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare was born in Stratford upon Avon, a country market town about 75 miles northwest of London in 1564. His birthday is celebrated on April 23, although no records exist to prove this is the date of birth. His father, John Shakespeare, was a glove maker, grain merchant, and local political leader. His mother, Mary Arden, was the daughter of a wealthy landowner. In 1582, at the age of 18, Shakespeare married Anne Hathaway. By 1952, Shakespeare had moved to London and was working as an actor. 2 years later, Shakespeare joined an acting company, the Lord Chamberlain's Men, for whom he eventually wrote most of his plays. Shakespeare, along with a group of players that acted in his plays, created his own theatre on the River Thames in 1599 and named it Globe Theatre. Shakespeare continued to work within his company of men at the Globe Theatre until around 1610. The year that he retired from working on the stage, he was known colloquially as the Bard of Avon. William Shakespeare wrote at least 37 plays that scholars know of, with most of them labeled as comedies, histories, or tragedies. His early works were for the most part based on English history. His works are often divided into four periods, beginning with what is referred to as an experimental period, starting around 1591 and ending around 1593, which includes Titus Andronicus, Love Labour's Lost, The Two Gentlemen of Verona, The Comedy of Errors, and The Taming of the Shrew. The second period, ending around 1601, marks the establishment of Shakespeare and includes the tragedy Romeo and Juliet, the comedies The Merchant of Venice, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Much Ado About Nothing, The Merry Wives of Windsor, and the history plays. Henry IV parts 1 and 2, Henry V, Richard II, King John and Julius Caesar. The third period, ending around 1610, marks perhaps the effects of Shakespeare's work with tragedies Hamlet, Othello, Macbeth, King Lear, etc. And Julius Caesar is also so Twelfth Night as well as epics. So and Antony and Cleopatra. Antony and Cleopatra. The final period ends with the 1611. 1611 The plays Cymbeline Henry VIII and romances such as Tempest and Winter Tale. And then two volumes of poetry. He has written 154 sonnets and attributed to Shakespeare. He returned to poetry most notably during 1593 and 1594 when a plague forced theatres in London to shut down. To shut down. Since 1610, William Shakespeare left London to retire to his large home in Stratford, but he was an active dramatist and writer up until 1613. When the last of his great works was finished, he lived his final years as a wealthy man and town leader, dying on April 23rd, 1616, at the age of 52. At the age of 52. So Julius Caesar is just as in his other place. So in Julius Caesar, Shakespeare transforms into the material derived from writings by others. The main sources of this play is Sir Thomas Na's translation of Plutarch's Lives, those Marcus Brutus, Julius Caesar, and Marcus Antonius, the three separate accounts of events leading. So, outline of the play. What is the play contents? So, the action begins. Julius Caesar begins in February 44 BC. Caesar was just re-entered Rome in triumph after victory in Spain over the sons of his old enemy Pompey the Great. A spontaneous celebration has been interrupted and broken up by Flavius and Marullus, two political enemies of Caesar. It soon becomes apparent from their words that powerful and secret forces are working against Caesar. Caesar appears with his friends and supporters and is warned by a soothsayer to beware the Ides of March, but he ignores the warning and leaves for the games and races, marking the celebration of the feast of Lupercal. Lupercal is a kind of festival. After Caesar's departure, only two men remain behind: Marcus Brutus, a close personal friend of Caesar, and Cassius, a longtime political foe of Caesar's. Both men are aristocratic origin and see the end of their ancient privilege in Caesar's political reforms and conquests. Envious of Caesar's power and prestige, Cassius cleverly probes to discover where Brutus' deepest sympathies lie as a man of highest personal integrity. Brutus opposes Caesar on principle despite his friendship with him. Cassius cautiously inquires about Brutus' feelings if a conspiracy were to unseat Caesar. He finds Brutus not altogether against the notion. The two men part, promising to meet again. In the next scene, it is revealed that the conspiracy Cassius spoke of in veiled terms is already a reality. He has gathered together a group of disgruntled and discredited aristocrats who are only too willing to assassinate Caesar, partly to gain the support of the respectable element of Roman, partly to gain the support of respectable element of Roman society. Cassius persuades Brutus to aid the conspiracy, and Brutus agrees to do so. Shortly afterwards, plans are made at a secret meeting in Brutus' orchard. The date is set. It will be on the day known as the Ides of March, the 15th day of the month. Caesar is to be murdered in the Senate chambers by the concealed daggers and swords of the assembled conspirators. After the meeting ends, Brutus' wife Portia, suspecting something and fearing for the husband's safety, questions him. Touched by her love and devotion, Brutus promises to reveal his secret to her later. The next scene takes place in Caesar's house. It is the fateful 8th of March and 15th of March. The preceding night has been a strange one, wild, stormy, and full of strange and unexplainable sights and happenings throughout the city of Rome. Caesar's wife, Calpurnia, terrified by horrible nightmares, persuades Caesar not to go to the capital, convinced that her dreams are portents of disaster by prearrangement. Brutus and other conspirators arrive to accompany Caesar, hoping to fend off possible warnings until they have him by totally in their power at the Senate, unaware that he is surrounded by assassins and shrugging of Calpurnia's exhortations, Caesar goes with them. Despite the conspirators' best efforts, a warning is pressed into Caesar's hand on the very steps of the Capitol, but he refuses to read it. Wasting no further time, the conspirators move into action, purposely asking Caesar for a favor they know he will refuse. They move closer and then reaching for their hidden weapons. They kill him before the shocked eyes of the senators and spectators. So, hearing of Caesar's murder, Mark Antony, Caesar's closest friend, begs permission to speak at Caesar's funeral. Brutus grants his permission over the objections of Cassius and delivers his own speech first, confident that his words will convince the people of the necessity of Caesar's death. After Brutus leaves, Antony begins to speak. The crowd has been swayed by Brutus' words, and it is an unsympathetic crowd that Antony addresses using every oratorial device known. However, Antony turns the audience into a howling mob, screaming for the blood of Caesar's murderers. Alarmed by the furor caused by Antony's speech, the conspirators and their supporters are forced to flee from Rome and finally from Italy. At this point, Antony, together with Caesar's young grandnephew and adopted son Octavius, and a wealthy banker Lepidus, gathers an army to pursue and destroy Caesar's killers. So these three men, known as the triumvirs, have formed a group called the Second Triumvirate to pursue the common goal of gaining control of the Roman Empire. Months pass, during which the conspirators and their armies are pursued relentlessly into the far reaches of Asia Minor. Then finally they decide to stop at the town of Sardis. Cassius and Brutus quarrel bitterly over finances. Their differences are resolved, however, and plans are made to meet the forces of Antony, Octavius, and Lepidus in one final battle against his own better judgment. Cassius allows Brutus to overrule him instead of holding to their well prepared defensive positions. Brutus orders an attack on Antony's camp on the plains of Philippi. Just before the battle, Brutus is visited the ghost of Caesar, which warns him, but Brutus' courage is unshaken and he goes on. The battle rages at the first. The conspirators appear to have the advantage. But in the confusion, Cassius is mistakenly convinced that all is lost and he kills himself. Leaderless, his forces are quickly defeated, and Brutus finds himself fighting a hopeless battle, unable to face the prospect of humiliation, and same as a captive, he too takes his own life. As the play ends, Antony delivers a eulogy over Brutus' body, calling him the noblest Roman of them all. Caesar's murder has been avenged, order has been restored, and most important, the Roman Empire has been preserved. So now I am going to discussing scene wise. It contains five acts and different scenes. In first act, scene first. I am Now I am discussing first act, first scene. First act. In first act, I discussing first scene. Flavius and Marullus, two two Roman officers are found chasing away citizens who have dressed themselves in their holiday attires and have gathered to welcome Julius Caesar, who is returning home after a conquest. One of these is a carpenter and another a cobbler. The officers question these artisans and criticize them for their enthusiastic welcome for Caesar. Marullus remarks that it is indeed ungrateful of Roman to show such affection for Caesars who killed his compatriot Pompey so treacherously. The same people, he remarks, used to gather enthusiastically to welcome Pompey also, but no, they have gathered to welcome Caesar, who has come in triumph after defeating Pompey's sons. In this not ingratitude, so Marullus asks to return their homes and atone for the sin they have committed in honoring Pompey's murderer. Flavius joins Marullus in exhorting people to repent for their misguided admiration of Caesar. The citizen withdraw when Flavius suggests to Marullus that they should go about removing the decorations that have been placed on public statues in honor of Caesar's triumph. The day being the feast of Lupercal, a harvest festival falling in the month of February 15th, Marullus asks his fellow officers if they can really disrobe the statues. Flavius does not pay much attention to the Lupercal feast. He says that their object should be to do everything to discourage Caesar from rising a great heights. He fears that, left unchecked, Caesar will soar high above the view of men enslaving the whole of Rome. It is about the scene first in Act first. Next to scene two in Act first. Julius Caesar enters, followed by Calpurnia, Antony, and others. It's a festival day, Lupercal festival, and Antony and some others are going to run a traditional foot race. The Romans of the day believed that a barren woman would conceive it touched by a man running the race. The Romans of the day believed that the Romans of the day Lupercal festival believed that a barren woman would conceive if touched by a man running the race. And California, being a barren woman, Caesar asked her to stand in the way of Antony and asked Antony not to forget to touch California in the course of his run. Presently, a soothsayer Sorry for disturbance. So Antony, not to forget to touch California in the course of his run. Presently, a soothsayer makes himself heard and warns Caesar to be wary of the Ides of March, but Caesar does not pay any heed to the warning and dismisses the soothsayer as a dreamer. So, as Caesar moves out with a retinue accompanied by music and gay shouts, Brutus and Cassius alone remain on the stage. Cassius, who is planning a conspiracy against Caesar, makes use of the occasion to impress upon Brutus the necessity to Greek Caesar's power, prefacing his remarks that Brutus, as of late grown moody and indifferent to his own self, he tries to make him jealous of Caesar. He says that accepting immortal Caesar, many people in Rome are indeed sorry that Brutus is not aware of his own worth. The notable Brutus does not wish to be drawn into any ambitious thought. However, he is disturbed by a certain welcoming music and shout which he hears and says that he fears that people choose Caesar for their king. This serves Cassius as the right opportunity to impress upon Brutus the danger of allowing Caesar to continue on his dictatorial path. He asks Brutus if he really fears any danger from Caesar. Brutus does not reply to Cassius in specific terms. He says that honor is the subject of his story and gradually makes Brutus understand that continuance of Caesar in power means harm to the honor of Rome. He narrates two stories to show that Caesar is, after all, a very ordinary man and that he is growing in power simply because others have kept quiet without doing anything in the matter. On the occasion when he and Caesar began swimming across the river, the the Tiber, Caesar got exhausted. Caesar got exhausted midway, and Cassius had to be bear him the shore even being able to bear the hot of fever, tried for the drink like a sick girl. And from these two incidents, Cassius means to point out the Caesar who has now imposed upon others like sort of demigod is an ordinary weakling. So in the third act, first scene third, that evening Cicero and Casca meet on a street of Rome. Meet on a street of Rome. There has been a terrible storm, and Casca describes to Cicero certain stained sites he saw beside the Capitol and feels apprehensive that there is some evil forbidding for the country. Appears that Casca saw a violent storm dropping fire. He saw a common slave holding a fire that blazed like 20 torches, and yet his hand was insensitive to fire. Then, beside the Capitol, he met a lion which glared at him but went aside coolly. There were 100 ghastly women who swore that they saw men all on fire walking up and down in the streets. On the previous day, an owl was found shouting, hooting